What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Grim back. As you can see today, we're out in nature, man. I got some stuff I'm doing today. Wanted to keep on the roll of talking about what we were, spirituality and continuing the process and the journey of making videos for everybody. So today we're gonna be talking about something that's personal to me. It's not necessarily something that was requested a whole lot on the channel. But if I can help one person out there, the little shithead me that was looking for answers or something and couldn't find anybody, then so be it. Today's video topic is going to be why your magic isn't working. Okay, and this is going to kind of feed into a couple different areas of discussion. So we're going to dip into just magic. Okay, I'm not really going to focus on this from a lens of Haitian voodoo or from a specific lens, but we're gonna talk through a couple different ones, if that makes sense. Just some general rules of thumb, if you will. Beyond that, we'll see what else comes to mind. I just kind of freeform this shit, man. I don't really write down a whole lot of stuff. There's not really a whole lot of planning that's going into this video, so it's gonna be more of like a vlog, if you will. So real quick, for those of you guys who don't know my background as far as the magic and the occult and these things go, let me go somewhere a little more private. I'll touch on that. So me personally, myself, I've been involved in the occult since about 14, 15. So it's been over 10 years now. We're well into a decade of some type of spiritual ascension, if that makes sense. I started off, working with the Goetia. For people who don't know, that's Solomonic magic. It's working a lot with very low frequency beings. It's very pact oriented, meaning that you're going to be making deals. They're not your friends. They don't give a fuck about how you feel about the situation, or no, they're gonna do their part. You better do yours. And it worked. It's not what I fell in love with. Okay, so after that whole side of work, I went to Christianity again for a little bit. I never really felt the relationship with Jesus. Okay, and this is not a knock to Christianity. I've spoken to spirits in possession, and they've acknowledged Jesus. I know he's real. The way that I like to establish where I'm at with people, because I've talked to other priests, I've talked to pastors, I've talked to a lot of different people about my view on Christianity, Catholicism, etc. For those of you who are familiar with the Book of Life, okay, it says that he knows how many hairs are upon your head, and it says every name in this book shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. He knows everything that's going to happen in your life and what you're going to do, with the inclusion of free will. And no name in that book shall be added or taken away. Keywords there. Only these names in this book will inherit the kingdom of heaven. No name shall be added or taken away. So for me, let's just, fuck with me for a second, Let's just say my name's not in that book. Do I have to be a Satanist? An evil person? A horrible, wicked son of a bitch? Or can I do traditional medicine? Can I work with my ancestors? Can I work with my Egun? Can I work with spirits that are not volatile, or infernal or pact driven, to take it back to where I was? To me, the answer is yes. I don't go around judging anybody else's religion. If your religion says that I'm an enemy, me and you aren't going to be friends, but other than that, I don't care what you practice, man. As far as magic, let's start getting back into that. We're going to start jumping back into that topic, because magic is a whole different topic than religion, okay? There's not really magic as you guys would see it in Christianity. There is magic in Christianity. Turning water into wine, walking on water, turning a loaf of bread or one fish into enough for everybody to eat. This is magic. You guys call it miracles, but this is magic. Jesus went and studied with monks, went and studied with people. As far as magic traditionally nowadays, okay, the definition of it has changed so much over the last couple centuries, because it was traditional medicine was witchcraft back in the day. People were burned for using plant medicine. You know, that's not what we connotate witchcraft with nowadays. When we think of witchcraft, we think of a forceful command, a forceful drive of will over somebody else. I'm going to insert what I want to happen, and that is going to happen above whatever other plan was already going on. Whether that's the person who I'm doing the work on, for good or for bad, you know, they have their plan too. I've got my plan. Everybody gets a vote. So if I throw work, or if I throw something, that person doesn't want to get fucking hit, you know? So if the other side of this too is there's levels to this shit. Not all magic is equal. I promise. You guys could, I could, okay, let me put it like this. There is some magic that everybody can do, you know, and it's, you know, magic being tapping in with your ancestors, tapping in with your spirits, doing the things that they tell you to do, giving them the tools they need to resolve a situation. If you start talking about root work, conjure, hoodoo, these things are a little different. They still rely heavily on your ancestors, but you have to give thanks to where it comes from. And this is Congo. All of that comes from Congo and from the slave trade, you know, which was then brought over and adopted by slaves in the South. Appalachian granny folk, Native Americans, they've all practiced some form of hoodoo, conjure, root work, traditional medicine. You know, with that, it is less about a spirit and more about what you have, okay? For example, if I need to give somebody a job, okay? Somebody needs help finding a job. There's a lot of different ways you can apply this medicine. You can make a mojo bag, a gree bag as they call them. You can load a candle for the person. Hell, if you have spirits, you know how to make them work, or if you got an ancestor that was, you know, a boss, employed people at companies, or, you know, anything like this, you can apply work to that. Work that is good is going to hit faster than work that's bad, if that makes sense, okay? Because there's not going to be as much opposing it. It's a lot to talk about, man. I've had a lot of work that I did in the beginning not work, you know, and it's because my expectations were like this. You know, you have to start small with a lot of these things. You know, if you're not seeing results, why are you doing it? That's one of the best lessons I ever learned, was if you're not seeing results in what you're doing, why are you practicing it? So if you're looking to find magic, there's a lot of systems out there that incorporate it. You know, the African traditional religions are primarily what my focus is, you know, and what I've been adopted into and what my family's, you know, passed down to me. But you've got Hellenistic magic, which, you know, comes from a lot of the Greek diaspora. You know, you've got Norse magic that comes from, you know, that Nordic pantheon. Odin, Tyr, Thor, all of them. Once again, very limited information on that. I can't speak on those things. But that's why it's hard for me to get on here and teach people about how to do magic, about how to send things out, about how to attract things to you. For one, this shit's not a game. What I do is different than manifestation. A lot of people do manifesting, okay? They'll take a rose quartz and a pink candle and go, I want a boyfriend, I want a girlfriend, you know? Universe, send it to me. Nothing wrong with it. You know, but there's levels to this magic. I keep saying that. What I mean by that is not everybody is spiritually equal. They're not. I'll give you an example. Is the kid who went around and partied and was in trouble his whole life and was just fucking off his whole life, you know what I mean? Not really taking it serious. If he does magic, is it going to hit somebody the same as somebody who is a priest in Haitian voodoo? Or a priest in a Babalao, you know, or a Palero, or something like this? The answer is no. You know, and if you think it is, you've either been lied to or you don't have a whole lot of experience in the subject. People are not spiritually equal. You know, and it's why, like, it's smart not to go around picking fights. You know, people who go around, and especially on Instagram, I see it a lot. You know, people will go around and they'll post all this, these hexes and this bad magic and all this shit. And one of two things is true. It could be both. One, their shit doesn't fucking work. Okay, that's one. Two, is their shit does work, and there's 3 options. 2, their shit does work and they only show you the bad, which again, I don't recommend. 3, they only do bad work and they're not going to be around very long. Those are the only options. That's it. You know, the advice I had when I started this was you either work with both sides of the coin or you only do good stuff. You only do bad work, you ain't gonna be around long, man. You know, and that is for people who have license and access to spirits, volatile, hot spirits that will stir some shit up, you know, rather quickly. You know, so this is important to know. You know, if you get involved in a spiritual battle and you're just throwing shit, you don't know, you know, who that person is. You don't know who their godparent is. You don't know what spirits walk with them. You know, so you can send some shit and you don't know, you just signed yourself up for a whole lot of problems. For example, you know, let's say somebody throws something at me. I may not even know. My spirits may not even tell me, but they're going to go take care of it. You know, and on the outside, people see, okay, he looks white. You know, he's in these religions, he's in the, you know, well, let's see how much he knows. You know, try to throw something. My spirits don't play that shit because I'm not the kid that was out partying and fucking off. While a lot of other people my age were, I was living with my godparent, my padrino, learning these things, studying underneath him. So that one day I can pass this information down to, you know, people who need it. There's a lot on here that I can't talk about. A lot of stuff that I know or that I practice is, you know, for initiates only. When you initiate in something, you're taught. When you're adopted into a bloodline and you're adopted into a system, into a family, a societe, or whatever you want to call it, then those things are passed down to you. But until then, I got to be limited with what I speak about. I can speak about the religions and the traditions all day. Can I teach you guys how to do stuff? If you guys need something done, I'm at a point in my life where I can start helping you guys. You know, I can do readings for you guys. I can do work, you know, for people. There's, you know, a lot that's changed. So if that's something that people need, that's always on the table. You know, comments here, Instagram work the best. So I'll give you guys, I don't like to give personal examples of work, but I will give you guys 2 stories, okay? I will give you 2 stories. And this will probably be the only time you guys ever hear me talk about bad work that I've done, because I don't like addressing those things or talking about that kind of stuff, just because I don't want it to be glorified. You know, these things are a part of the tradition. You know, these religions, voodoo, a lot of the other ones, were made, I say a lot of the other ones because there's ones I'm specifically talking about that I'm not mentioning on purpose. If you know, you know. But voodoo, let's talk about that primarily right now, was made from war, was made from slavery, was made from injustice, was made for the necessity for survival and freedom. Okay? And there were people selling their mothers, selling their kids, you know, beating them, all horrible things that aren't even talked about, you know, nowadays. And so the system provided them with tools to be able to deal with these people. You know, that is part of it. Absolutely. Anybody that tells you otherwise doesn't know or is lying to you. Yeah, there is shit to hurt people in these religions. Is it the religion? No. You know, if you only do bad work, if you only do fucked up things to people, is that the religion? No, absolutely not. I have seen so much more good, so much more healing, so many more positive, you know, areas in a lot of this, you know, than anything bad. But long preface, I'll start with, you know, the good work. So I told you guys about one when I died in my last video, and the spirit that came and helped me with that. The other one is her sister. Okay, her name is Azili Danto. More specifically, Azili Balian. So I haven't made a story time about Kara, my ex who I was with for 7-8 years, and how all of that fell apart. But that was one of the hardest things I ever went through. And it tanked me. When I tell you, that fucked me up. And that spirit right there, I did some work with her through the help of my padrino. And within 3 days, I couldn't feel it anymore. The emotions, the pain, the turmoil, the not sleeping, all of these things was gone. All I could feel was love. And I tell people, if stuff like that is evil, I'm the most evil person. Now the other one, this one is where things get a little more, I guess, interesting, and it's more of what people like to hear on these channels and these avenues. Is the bad work. Now, once again, I'm not gonna tell you guys any work that I've done that's just mean, out of revenge. For one, because I don't do stuff like that, and for two, because once again, I'm not trying to glorify it. So this story is going to be more justice based. This was a person that came into my life, caused a huge problem, and they got what they got. So I was living in Virginia Beach at the time. I was still with Kara, and we hired a contractor to come over and renovate our house. And we only hired him for the bottom, okay? So, like the basement floor, or not the basement, I'm sorry, the first floor. My spiritual room is on the top floor, okay? I've got my own little room, my own stuff set up, everything, there's no reason anybody should be in there. So, he's setting up the house. Sorry, I'm trying to set up my phone. Let me find a good place. Here we go. Oh, this is a fucking struggle, man. All right. Perfect. So he's over at the house, and we get into it one day because I had a bong out. At the time I smoked a fuck ton of weed, right? And he's got a coworker who he said is a recovering alcoholic. Now anytime he saw me and they worked in my house, I was like, hey, you guys need anything? Can I get you guys anything? Can I do anything for you? Whatever. Can I make your lives any easier while you work here? Always, no, we're good, no problem. So one day, I come back home from work, and my girlfriend's parents, who are super, super Catholic, are sitting out front of my house. They were called there by this contractor who found my bong, called my girlfriend's parents, who they did not hire him for the job, called my girlfriend's parents and told them that they needed to come over. They had a serious drug problem going on at the house, and that his coworker was not going to be able to work under these conditions because he was a recovering alcoholic. Now stay with me, I'm still trying to figure this one out myself. So I have to sit there and I'm bitched at by my girl's parents, and I'm not gonna show my ass, right? Like I'm a man, all right, dude, like whatever, y'all get it out, you know what I mean? I'm wrong, fine, no problem, So they leave. I go up to this contractor and said, hey man, what the fuck? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you could have fucking talked to me about this shit, man. Why did you have to go above my head and try to pull some shit like this? He's like, well, I just didn't know how the conversation would go. I didn't know how you would be. I said, okay, but what you did know from me is I've always asked you if you needed something. I've always been courteous. I've always been polite to you. Always tried to see what else you need, right? He said, yeah. I said, all right, dude, you fucked me. Appreciate that. But I let it go. I still said, you know what? Let me be patient. He's a fucking asshole, but it's okay. People suck. Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. Maybe they're not mean, they're just stupid. It's easier for me to process things that way. So I said, all right, man, it's all good. So about a week later, I come back to my house. We're about to have a storm. Hurricane's coming, right? And I'm hearing wind from upstairs where he's not supposed to be. He had already left for the day. So I go into my baji, my spiritual room, where I have all my stuff set up. And he's opened the window and closed the blinds so that I couldn't see the window was open. And as soon as it rained, all of my stuff right below it was going to be destroyed. Now, thankfully, I got there in time and something told me to go check, close the window, boom. But now we've got a fucking problem because that was malicious. That's not incompetence. You don't accidentally go up out of your scope of where you're working and go open some shit, close some other stuff to be sneaky, and then close the door behind you. So I asked him about it. I said, hey, buddy. You by any chance go up there? He said, yeah, I was just trying to open the windows. It was a little hot. I said, just in my room, and then you close the door behind you? He didn't really have an excuse for that. So at this point now, I'm like, all right, dude, all bets off the table. I'm pissed. And the method that I used for this, I'll go ahead and tell you guys, was root work and conjure. Root work, conjure, hoodoo, Now, the thing about root work, conjure, and hoodoo is you have to be consistent. Typically. with a lot of work in that, you have to be consistent. It's something you come back to. It's something you keep praying over. It's work. That's why it's called work. Something you keep doing. Now, I did something for about a week, and the aim and object was to make sure he never stepped foot back into my house again. I don't care how it happened. I said, you know what? Y'all figure it out. So it had been about 3 days, and his coworker comes over to the house, and for the first time, other guy's not with him, you know, and I didn't ask right that day, you know. Next day comes, guy's still not there. Following day comes, guy don't show up. This is unlike him. So I go down and ask his coworker, I said, hey, what the fuck's going on, man? Where's your help? You know? And he said, well, he said he had an accident. I said, oh yeah? So that's crazy, man. I said, what happened? He said, well, it was kind of a long story, and you know, and so then he somehow conversation trails off. He doesn't tell me. He gets a phone call from him later, and they're talking about what happened. Well, apparently he was riding his bike, right? A little e-bike, you know, it's going about 40, whatever. And as he's going, he's out in the middle of the country, you know, middle of nowhere. He said this black dog just showed up next to him. He said he was riding his bike, looking all around, and at one point he looks down and there's a dog keeping up speed with him. And as soon as he made eye contact with the dog, I'm hearing it from him on speakerphone, right? He's not telling me, he's telling his coworker on speakerphone. He goes, as soon as I made eye contact with the dog turned and ran right into my front tire and knocked me into a ditch. And he's pretty much, he tore his MCL, his ACL, and his meniscus. And then he pulled something in his neck. He had a neck brace on, and he was on crutches for like probably 7-8 months. Moral of the story, he didn't come back over to finish the job at my house. Now, am I proud of that? No. You know, is that was that the right way to handle things? No. You know, is there karma or repercussions for how I acted? Probably. You know, you got to understand that with magic, it's no different than punching someone in the mouth or stealing something from somebody. You know, if you can sow seeds of good or evil with magic, you know, a bullet and killing somebody with magic are the same thing. The same thing. One of them you decided to take it into your hands physically, one of them you decided to take it into your hands spiritually. Does everybody have the license, the know-how, or the power to kill somebody spiritually? No. Does everybody know how to use, operate, and own a gun? No. You know, you see, so there's some similarities. But I'm not going to make this video too long. I wanted to address some areas of concern, you know, give you guys some updates as far as what I've been practicing. It's still Haitian Vodou, and I have my toes in Ocha. You know, there's a lot of different stuff going on in that play now, but we'll make some more videos. If you guys have any more questions, you know, or specific video topics, it would help me out a lot. You know, right now I'm going to be going through and, like I said, you know, in the last video, I archived a lot of stuff. So I'm going to be going back and kind of, you know, readdressing certain topics. But I appreciate all the engagement on that first video, man. All the comments and everything. You guys have been nothing but a blessing. If you guys have, you know, any more questions or any more stories you want to hear, anything like that, y'all let me know. Y'all take care. Be safe.